Welcome to the Remote Play Gaming Podcast. I'm here with Evan today, and I'm Mark. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about remakes, remasters, and ports. But first, before we dive into the agenda, I just wanted to toss a question your way, Evan. If we had to do a remake, a remaster, and port of three games that I'm going to give you in a second, how would you pick which ones were what? So your games are Morrowind, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and Rock Band.
Oh, wow. All right. I'm going to think about that while we go through our introduction.
And we're back. Evan, I'll toss it over to you if you want to cover today's agenda, and then we can dive in.
All right. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Gamescom and some of the announcements that we are excited about and the news that came from there. A little bit about the Red Dead Remaster controversy, and some personal feelings on remakes, remasters, ports, some upcoming titles, and whether or not a remake or a remaster can be considered for Game of the Year.
All right, cool. And so, what do you think about the question I asked you earlier?
Yeah, so that's a really exciting question. I'm gonna say right out of the gate, Rock Band is my port. We had Guitar Hero Live, and that came out, and I want to say Rock Band and they just kind of failed, right? So
Right.
those were sequels, they weren't, but like I'm like I don't want you to mess with what was so good about the original, like really the first three Rock Bands. I'll throw the a couple first few Guitar Heroes and stuff in there, right? Like those were good. Those struck gold. That was before this age. I mean, that was kind of the initial age of I guess like microtransactions and stuff. But it just
Right.
like that was something that made sense. You're like, oh, you're paying for a song. So I just want to experience it the same way I did. I loved the way I experienced it. Maybe a cheaper guitar than what the Rock Band was, like that the Guitar Hero Explorer that was like $20 at one point, because I think that's part of what led to some of the problems with those being sustainable is the peripherals just kept getting more and more
So
expensive, and it's just like,
expensive. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's like here you can buy for the more than the price of the console itself a whole band kit. And it's like, well, I'm not trying to be a garage band.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to rock out in my living room.
All
Like,
right.
yeah. So, but that's my port. That's a port. Give me a cheap guitar and a way to honestly just experience, those songs that we love to play, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. Can I ask you a
Gosh, I guess
question on the port before we move forward?
sure.
So I had a thought. What if this was like a remake and or even a remaster, and Apple teams up with Harmonix and they say, "We have all the licensing for the songs. We bundle it in somehow with our Apple Music subscription. If you're a person that has that subscription or you pay a small nominal fee, you just play whatever that they put into the game. Obviously, they have to do the work to get stuff in the game.
They got AI, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Now AI is a thing. It just puts it into the game and ports any song from iTunes or Apple Music rather, or like a Spotify subscription.
Yeah.
Wow. And that
How,
would have to take the remake slot, right?
yeah, how
To
crazy would
get
that be
that.
though?
That would be incredible. That does make me kind of consider, honestly. Well, I'll give you some other thoughts on the other stuff while I think about that, because
Okay.
that's a good question. Ocarina of Time is a game that we've seen ports, we've seen pseudo remasters, high quality ports. I don't know if the 3DS or the if we can call them quite remasters. It just seems like up-res ports, and maybe with a few quality of life improvements, and then just updated for the controls of the console they were
Right.
on.
Like the
We see it on the
3DS or
Nintendo Switch Online subscription, right? So
yep.
it's just like I can go ahead and play it. If I were to say port for that, it's like, well, I already have it. Almost already have it on Switch Online right now. As far as it's an emulated ROM. Whether that's a port, is it up for discussion? I guess, but
But it's out
um,
there, right? And
I s-
you can go
but
play
I
it.
still love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can still play that and still feel like it's one of my favorite games of all time.
Right.
So whether on that note, I would love to see a ground up remake of the game, because we've seen so many ports. It's like, okay, no, like let me see like how you visualize this game after you've made Breath of the Wild, after
Yeah.
you've made Tears of the Kingdom, and see what you think about what is for a long time has been considered the greatest game of all time by many people, by many
Yeah.
outlets, by and if not the greatest, still it's always in that top 5 discussion, right?
Right.
So maybe like seeing like what Square has done with Final Fantasy VII, another one of those games that discussion is just like, uh, maybe it would be really, really cool to see what Nintendo does. One thing with Zelda is they are really good about making games that kind of feel timeless anyway. So, I would say something like Morrowind that we brought up, that you brought up, is a lot more going to be a lot more outdated. You hear about people like, oh, Morrowind was so amazing for the time, but I just want it to be modernized. Like, it's so hard to play now.
Right. Unless you
Um,
add like a million mods, right? And that's not on
yeah,
the Xbox. So like it's in Game Pass, but you're not modding it. So a lot of people
yeah,
have a hard time
exactly.
diving into it, me included.
Yeah, so I have it on Steam. We have it on Game Pass, right? And it's just as much as I love these Bethesda games, it's hard for me to just really like think that I'm gonna jump. It's hard for me to jump into Fallout 3, which I consider my favorite Fallout game, which is a top 3 game of all time for me, and that's not nearly as old. Oblivion and Morrowind are old. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's even older than Fallout 3, and uh, you know that is that's hard to jump into now. So I think Morrowind I deserves the remake treatment. I want to see it remade. I think just a remaster. Maybe you could give some quality life improvements and make it playable today. But I think I want to see a little more than just an upres, a little some improved controls, some and but I want to see that. I want to see that remade, and that's really saying a lot compared to now to the what I was saying about Ocarina of Time, which is uh is a top 2 game of all time, maybe top 3 game. Verdict's still out there for tears for me, um, and where it puts Ocarina of Time and everything,
And there's
and then
rumors of
the
that,
not
right? There's rumors of the Oblivion or Morrowind or both being
yeah
remade, remastered. So
yeah
it's
I've
out there.
definitely seen some stuff about Oblivion, which I would love to see as well. And that might even be deal with a remaster a little better than Morrowind, but honestly, I would love to see either one of those remade as opposed to Skyrim re-released for the 17th time, right?
Right? Yeah.
Uh,
It's now on your
but
fridge.
maybe next year because my docket's full for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah.
playing a different Bethesda game this year, the rest of this year. But but yeah, no, I definitely would. Yeah, I want to see some of the Fallout 3 was my entry to Bethesda games, so I just want to see anything before that remade, so I can enjoy it the way that I've enjoyed it. Really, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, Skyrim. We're about to enjoy Starfield. Like I want to enjoy some of those older titles that really put Bethesda on the map.
Right.
Uh, in a in a way that feels like I like the people did the first time they played them back in the day, which
Exactly.
playing that original game wouldn't feel that way now. It just feel outdated.
100%.
So
And let me ask you this
uh
really quick. If you're going to remake that game, was that in the Gamebryo engine? The one that they, for
I
lack
believe so. Yeah, Gamebryo or whatever.
yeah, so for lack of a better term, like there's always a lot of bugs and like spaghetti code, if you will, with these Bethesda games just because they are so large and of a project. So how would a remake work? Do you remake it in that same engine? We know that they've modified and upgraded that engine over time and they're still using it. Or does it get remade in like Unreal or something? And is that too big of an undertaking
I
for somebody to
I
do?
think I think the Gamebryo turned into Creation to now Creation 2.0
Yeah. Yeah.
is what Starfield is being considered. Uh, I think that engine does things that you just can't do in Unreal.
Right.
I think the interactivity that you have with just everything on the map, right? The fact that like you can kill somebody in the first 2 hours of playing the game, play the game for 1,000 hours and go back to that spot, and that body is still there with the same, the same armor or whatever, that's,
Yeah.
the same inventory or whatever to on the character, right? Everything is retained. The retention that game has,
Right.
or that engine is capable of, it just feels unparalleled. And maybe I'm wrong, but we haven't seen that in any other game, right? That nobody does that the way that Bethesda does that.
Right. Right.
Stuff ends up just disappearing, and uh, in other engines and other games. So I think you would probably just have to use the creation engine where it is today. Whatever it's doing with Starfield. I've heard that the current rumored remake right now is using like a hybrid of Unreal and Creation or
What?
Gamebryo.
What?
I think Gamebryo and Unreal, which is, I'm like, how do you? I don't know how
Yeah.
that works. And it's just a rumor, so I don't know. But yeah, and so have even now you bring it up that spot or the Apple Music subscription type of deal sounds really enticing. Like, oh, I can just play like any song,
Yeah.
then
No
on
brainer.
Rock.
No brainer, right?
I feel like we had, and maybe this is me just remembering Rock Band 1, Rock Band 2, Rock Band 3, kind of thing. And in my head, that's what we're porting. We're porting the trilogy.
Yeah. Hey, that's
But
fine.
that to me had virtually unlimited, right? If you counted the number of DLC, the amount of DLC that was on there, even if you don't, there's so much content that it's just like, I'd be just happy to go in and master, not remaster, but just master those songs all over again, because it's just like you can spend hours and hours and hours just trying to perfect one song on
Right.
expert. The replayability for those songs, and they had some really great soundtracks for that time, and that's how I remember Rock Band, and I'm okay with experiencing having that nostalgia with Rock Band and just experiencing that again. I think
Right.
that would still hold up.
That's good enough for
Uh,
you. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah,
And they were
and
still doing songs a couple years ago. They might be doing it
yeah,
now. Um,
yeah, for Rock Band 4,
but
right?
licensing is a problem, right? So some songs would drop off. So you had to go out and buy them and get them locally onto your console before it went away. And this Apple thing, and then you mentioned the AI just importing the songs. That's a banger idea.
Yeah, that is awesome. And honestly, it's just because of the other games that you mentioned that's not what I want. Because now that brings into, now I'd be curious. Like, I feel like if you try to modernize the monetization of this, as opposed to just port it the way it was, I was like, it just gets more greedy and grubby, right?
Yeah.
Like, monetization in video games today is just so much more obnoxious than it was. So I'm
Yeah.
like, and it's like that was already a kind of early microtransaction days where you were buying song packs and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure there's something there. I'm like, they would find a way to try to just take more money out of our pocket. So I'm like, don't mess with it. Don't mess with it. And just give me as it was,
It all
and
started with
don't
that
make it
damn
worse.
horse armor. Come on,
That's
Bethesda.
right. That's right. Circling back to the other game, right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Uh,
So yeah, so before we transition to the topics that we talked about, and a little off topic, we did have some news about a question. A question I want to ask you about some news that came out this week was
okay.
the PlayStation Portal. It was the Project Q that was announced at not E3 at their PlayStation Showcase in May.
Yep.
The PlayStation Portal is now its official name. It's a 1080p 8-inch screen, LCD screen. It does. It only streams from your PS5. So it just does the PlayStation Remote Play from your home PS5. You can do it anywhere you have Wi-Fi, as long as you have a strong internet connection to upload from your home network and good internet connection where you're streaming to. But it's at $199. Uh, what are your thoughts, and more specifically, uh, as a gamer dad, somebody who's probably fighting for some screen time, does this PlayStation Portal have any kind of appeal or draw to you?
That's a great question. First off, love the name. The name's good. I like PlayStation Portal. It plays into the PSP. You know, yet
Yeah,
again,
right, right.
revitalizing that. It looks cool. I mean, it looks sleek. It's got the dual sense controllers attached to it. They don't detach like a Switch. Um, I think it's maybe a good idea in theory, but I think they fell short. I mean, $200, good price point, but to stream just from the console, it's a very specific niche use case of, hey, the TV's taken and I want to play my games still. And that's good. That's great for people that want that. Maybe you have kids that are using the TV to watch a movie, or your wife or husband or whoever is watching a movie and you want to play a game. But for me personally, that's why we have Switches, right? I can't play the PS5. That's fine. I'll go grab my Switch handheld, my OLED, or if you have a Switch Lite, pop that out, play some games. You're good to go. In my eyes, the PS5's one of the biggest benefits of that is the graphics on these next gen games, right? If I'm playing Horizon Forbidden West, I want to play it on that 4K LG Sony TV, not on this 1080p handheld. Like, I'm not that hard pressed to play those games that I want to experience that way. Part of the experience in playing that for me is to play it on that big screen. So I just think this misses the mark. I'm not really sure what they're thinking marketing wise or what the business strategy is here. It almost feels like a Me Too type thing with the Switch and the Steam Deck. Like, oh, we also have an offering, that's a handheld. And I just don't think it does it for me. What about you?
Yeah, so it's kind of like yeah, us, like you said, us too, but like not really like this is Steam Deck at home type of
Right.
Steam Deck. Well, we have Steam Deck at home type of type of meme level because of what it offers. Yeah, I think not having PS Now on there is a huge miss. I think
Yeah,
if
it's
this
a
thing
good
has
point.
PS Now somebody who doesn't have a PS5, I'm considering it. $199, as something that just streams. Yeah, a little expensive, but it's like I like the DualSense controller.
Right.
It looks kind of odd, but I mean it's for me easily the most comfortable PlayStation controller yet. And so just to feel like I'm holding a controller, to me the Steam Deck, I'm feels a little clunky. The Switch is too cramped. So it's just like just put the actual controller in the hands. What feels good? What has been designed to be ergonomically comfortable, right?
Yeah.
As you can
So
see, I'm a portable gamer, as we know. I love handheld gaming, so I have my Steam Deck and my Switch behind me. I have a few different Switches, right? And so I love handheld gaming. I have Game Boy Pockets. I have a Game Boy Advance SP sitting right in front of me. Handhelds that I play regularly. I've had a PSP. I had a Vita. So this, if I had a PlayStation 5, this maybe does have some appeal to me, but also with the Steam Deck, I kind of have my PS Vita too, or my PlayStation Portable that
right.
plays games natively. As PlayStation is bringing more and more of their first party games, later, but they are bringing them to Steam, and they're all pretty much Steam Deck verified, and so it's like, well, I can play them natively. So even if I had a PlayStation 5, do I want to spend $200 play games that I
You can
guess,
already
then
get,
I don't have to
yeah.
buy them again, because I buy them on the PlayStation 5 or get them, I get them through, the PS Now or,
PS
PlayStation Plus
Plus, yeah.
subscriptions and stuff that, I can stream from my console. So maybe I think it's not quite, it needs a little more.
They don't have
I
the full
think
solution, right?
Yeah, there's definitely been some appeal for really what our demographic seems to be, right? I saw a lot online, people that were like putting comments on Reddit. They were just like, the people that are saying that this doesn't have a market don't have families that they compete with screen time, and I'm like, you and me are exactly that market,
Yeah.
and we still are a little bit scratching our heads a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's not that what it is offering is bad. It's that it's not offering enough to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you made a good point about the PS Now. If this had PS Now, it becomes way more enticing, right? Um,
Yeah.
so two questions. First, if Xbox releases this, is it a hit? Does it make sense? If this is a Series M and it streams Game Pass, xCloud, is this a moneymaker?
So for me, if it streams xCloud, right, there's the key, right? If it
Yeah,
just does console streaming, you're running into the same problem.
right.
uh, yeah, I mean, Game Pass is more notable and significant than PS Now right now, right? PS
Yeah,
Now has been around for a long time, and maybe the part of the PS Now's problem with like why xCloud feels more notable and significant right now is because it's newer. It came like PS Now was not an incredible service for a long time, and so it's
yep,
just kind of maintained that reputation. And I think both platforms have a future going into this cloud streaming these portables and things and these subscription services. Yeah. So for me, if this thing ran Game Pass, there's uh, or if we got an Xbox comparable that ran Game Pass. I mean, honestly, if it only ran Game Pass, but it ran it natively or it does xCloud streaming.
$200, no brainer. I'd
I'm
walk to the
sold.
store
I'm
right now,
sold.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have this Asus ROG Ally coming out, and the Lenovo Legion Go that was just recently announced. That is running Windows. Windows isn't a great handheld experience yet.
right, right.
I'm hoping and expecting that Windows or Microsoft and Xbox are working on and providing some kind of better way to, if not experience Windows as a whole, experience Xbox app, right? That is the experience gaming in a handheld way through Windows.
Right.
Because I kind of think that Xbox wants to leave that to the third parties as they are, and just if anything, all right, let them work out the kinks, right? Let's Steam lead the way, right? Valve
Yeah.
lead the way with the Steam Deck, and then let these other devices, okay, they can run Game Pass, we'll help you out, make sure that Game Pass is working,
Get our
like, and try to.
subs. Yep, get our
Right,
subs.
exactly. We want people to subscribe to our subscription that are using your devices,
Yeah,
and we have like these GPD Win devices, and AONEO and
yeah,
is coming out with a device like every other month, and I think I'm really excited for what's going to be happening here in the next 5-10 years with these handheld PC gaming market. I think, personally, I would love like late gen hardware for both the PlayStation and the Xbox to be this hybrid handheld experience, even if it's only in handheld. I would love a dockable, like the
yeah,
Switch format, to me is gaming at its apex. Like there is, for me, I want a way to just play the video game in my hands and then just drop it down and it just works on the TV. It's
yeah.
one device. I mean, it
It's
honestly, like,
futuristic, right? Like back in the day, you're like,
functional.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, like in the movies, that's what would happen, right? Like, oh yeah, just
functionally
take this, throw it
ideal.
there, and it's on the screen. Yeah,
Absolutely. Like you throw an Xbox Series S onto a handheld. I mean, the Xbox Series S is small, but it's not a handheld small, right? Like, so I don't know how feasible that is today, but
yeah,
like, I don't know, we get late gen 2025, $500. I can have a handheld Xbox Series S. That's my market more so than any other Xbox that's been put out, any
yeah.
PlayStation that's been put out.
I would agree. All right, so second question I had on this PlayStation Portal: do you think Sony is gearing up their cloud platform and the PS Now, bolstering that? And in the future, there'll be an update that just flips a switch, and hey, your PlayStation Portal now streams to PS Now. Then what? And do you think they're doing that?
I hope so. They're definitely working on their cloud streaming. There was some stuff that came out uh, that they're working on a lot behind the scenes to make this their PS Now service, their cloud streaming, a better service. And honestly, I really hope so. I think Microsoft is clearly just, they're leading the charge right now. They're first. I don't know if they're necessarily first to market, but they're first to be relevant in the market
Right.
for cloud streaming and video games. Right, like Stadia came and went. I don't think anybody ever had faith in Stadia to begin with, which led to it like them Google not having faith in it, which led to closure, and
Yeah.
ultimately it's failure, right? We have Luna, Amazon Luna sticking. I think they're just going to kind of keep doing their thing. Netflix is starting to add some of its games in a weird way to streaming, but I don't think cloud streaming video games is going away anytime soon. I don't
Right.
know that it's going to take off in a way that like it feels like it could or should, or that some of these companies want it to. So far our experience with xCloud is that it hasn't. Right, like a few years ago, we were talking about xCloud, and you would think that like, oh, by now it's going to be huge, right? But
Right.
I don't think it's quite there. It's almost like this virtual reality, almost like this, autonomous cars. Like it keeps like feeling like we're right on the verge of it, and we're just going to be on the verge of it for a little while.
Right.
Which then leads to these native handhelds again. But I think the market for the handheld is there now. But I lost your question already.
The
I kind of got.
PS now.
Oh, yeah. PlayStation is definitely working on their cloud platform, and honestly, they may come out with just like an update here in the next year or so that brings them like that really narrows that gap, or puts them at the same level as xCloud, and it's just instead of like iteration by iteration, it's just like one big swoop. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I definitely think they're going to be there, and I think that's good for the industry. I think that's good for cloud gaming as a whole. It's great for the consumer to see that competition. Um, yeah, absolutely.
Now we just have to see what takes off. We don't know. And the cost, right? That's
Yep.
is it better to sell a bunch of consoles often at a loss, or is it more profitable to build a bunch of servers and throw same components in as blades and then stream that to people and then get subscriptions over time?
Right. Yeah. No, it's hard for me to imagine that as long as the service, right, the getting the streaming component functional, if you can get that to work as a good experience, that you can say, okay, we're going to take this $500 piece of hardware, and either sell it to the consumer, like you said, at a little bit of a loss that will make up for purchased games or something, or we could put the same piece of hardware effectively in a rack in a cloud somewhere, and you get to use it when you want to use it. But like when you're not, somebody else is using it, and then somebody
Right.
else is using it, right? So they just get so much more, um, use out of the money that they come like they can bring in so much more money per unit per
Yeah, the
$500
ROI,
hardware.
the ROI is much better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a matter of getting that experience. Like you still have to get a controller in people's hands, right?
Yeah,
And just
yeah.
so like people are like, oh, video games, I'm gonna go buy the PlayStation 5. I get everything I need with it, and it's just like, okay, so if I buy this PlayStation 5 controller, I can just sync it to like say my Bravia TV or my phone, and I think that's like, oh, that sounds like effort
Yeah,
as
it's not
opposed
as
to
smooth. It's not the
right? Like it's not
Apple
like, okay,
smooth.
this PlayStation controller will connect to my PlayStation. It's like I'll plug it in and it just turn. Which sometimes you do have to sync the controller, but
Right.
like it's a part of like that's the expectation you go into it. You're like, can I wait? Like I don't know. Something sounds weird. Like I feel like that just sounds like too much effort for the typical consumer, right?
Right.
To go out and buy a controller and just say, it syncs. Maybe if they sell a PS5 controller with Bravia TVs or something like
That's what I'm
that,
thinking with the app, right?
yeah, exactly. The app's right there. PS Now, boom. And then Samsung is partnering with Game Pass. Maybe they
Yep.
should start throwing an Xbox controller in there and just say like, here's the XCloud app. Here's a month free or whatever, and or 2 weeks
Yeah.
free, and see if you love it. And then when you do, $18 a month, or whatever, to get the XCloud.
Yeah, I think we will
Yeah.
see them test the waters with that. But I think that was a great question and a great discussion. You want to jump into some more of our agenda? We want to hit up some Gamescom announcements?
Yeah, absolutely. We had Gamescom opening night live was pretty much as far as news, that was the bulk of what Gamescom. It's still going on right now, but it's mostly just like show floor type of stuff
Yep.
at this point. Um there's mostly just updates, and that's what Jeff Keighley was selling it as. It was mostly just updates on games, a couple announcements. we got another look at Cyberpunk 2077. Did you watch that stream or?
Yeah, yeah, I want to say I'm excited and looking forward to it. I am, but there's just so many games coming
When am I gonna
out.
play it?
You
Yeah.
know, for me, we both played that at launch. I played through the game. I loved it for what it was at the time. Yeah, it didn't live up to the hype, but it was still very good, even though there was bugs. But we played it on the Series X, which at the time was the best performing version, right? So,
Right.
I enjoyed it a lot. I would love to dive back in. A lot of this, just for the listeners, a lot of the updates are not just in this expansion, they're coming to the base game. So you don't have to buy the expansion to get all these new quality of life improvements and add-ons. How about you?
Yeah.
You looking forward to get into that?
Yeah. As you said, at some point, um, I might run it, play it side by side with Starfield, but to try to jump into like two deep RPGs like that, or two, just large, massive RPGs like that at the same time, I don't know. That kind of breaks my brain. I don't know that I can keep up with
That's
that.
tough, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I will. I might just start over at this point,
Right.
and I've got like 70 hours into the game. I'm somebody that kind of looks around every little corner, opens every little box, and does everything. That's what I love the Bethesda games for. I mean, I really enjoyed Cyberpunk for that. Initially, it didn't, again, quite have that interactivity that you get from the Bethesda games in that sense. It did other things a lot, and it just I haven't played The Witcher 3. That's a game I want to play, but it was my first experience with CD Projekt Red RPG, and I really enjoyed what I saw there, despite all the criticism and controversy that it had, rightfully so, and that
Yeah.
it had at launch. I still had a blast with it. And so to know that like it's now become something that is actually a good, well received experience, I'm sure I would only enjoy it more. So it's just kind of like I feel like I could almost go back and feel like I'm enjoying this game again for the first time.
Yeah, and that's
So
great. And I think Cyberpunk failed so that Starfield could succeed, if that makes sense. I think when Microsoft and Xbox bought Bethesda, they were like, "Yo, we're not having another
we can do this.
Cyberpunk on our hands. You guys, you take another year, 2 years. Let's iron out all the bugs and then we'll release."
Absolutely. And I think had Microsoft not acquired Bethesda, we might have been dealing with another Cyberpunk on our hands. I
I
think
think,
I
yeah,
think Bethesda, because Bethesda was under the gun, they got to put something out to make money, right?
right.
If they are just ZeniMax, and you can't just as much as they love to, you can't just keep releasing Skyrim to like fund a whole company.
Right.
um, so it is just like Elder Scroll. Well, yeah. So it's like that's ZeniMax as opposed to Fallout 76 has its microtransaction ongoing type of thing, but you're not as big of a company or studio as BGS is. You gotta put out a game. You can't go so long without putting out a game. So
Right.
they probably pushed that thing out the door a year ago, a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
And it comes out with all the bugs, and it's just like it seems like for at least the last year, if not longer, the focus for Starfield has just been polished. Make sure that this is the best running Bethesda game to ever come out. Yeah, so I think that's a positive thing from that acquisition that we got out was Phil, like Phil Spencer himself. No, I don't know, or Matt, whoever, Xbox as a whole, as a just having that that good thing that being owned by the platform, that you're just like, okay, just make sure this game is great.
It's
It's
good.
more
Yep.
important than it runs great, and it comes out and it is an absolute hit than
Yeah.
it is to come out right away,
Like
right?
the Nintendo process, I guess I would say. That's their
Yes,
mantra, right? When it's ready, it's ready.
it's ready. Yep, and
I think what Miyamoto said it, about a delayed game, right? So like,
yeah, something about it. The late game
it, it,
will eventually be good, and
yeah,
a
but
rush game will be
be
bad
bad
forever, kind of
forever.
thing.
Exactly. And I
Yeah,
think that just going back to the Gamescom, I think Cyberpunk they failed in that regard, but it was a lesson for the industry, and I think we're seeing that with the Starfield. So, all right, let's jump
absolutely.
to our next game, Black
Yep.
Myth Wukong. So this got some eyes open back when it was announced. This is kind of like Chinese culture and theme, folklore, myth, legend. I think based off of some of the stuff from like a book, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the name of the book, but somebody in the comments could tell us. But this is kind of like an action RPG, looks gorgeous, slightly faster pace, like Soulsborne type game. Is that your take on it? And what do you think of the trailer?
Yeah, so I have played I played a little bit of Bloodborne. I enjoyed the little bit of Bloodborne I played. I tried playing the Dark Souls remaster on Switch. Got I don't know, an hour or so into it and just couldn't get hooked. So I do want to jump into Elden Ring at some point. But yeah, so you're saying faster pace. So did you play Sekiro?
I have not played Sekiro yet. I do have it. I have not started it up.
Okay. So that's I think supposed to be a kind of a faster paced Souls game as well, right?
Right,
So kind of maybe a little more of that what that toward that side of the Soulsborne pacing and stuff. It looks awesome. It looks stunning. First off,
right.
it's not FromSoft, right? So to be clear, right? It's
Yep.
somebody else. I would have to look up. It looks like one of the best non FromSoft Souls like games, right? I think they're touting it as the first um uh next gen Soulsborne game or something. Because it's not going to be on last gen. It's not going to be on PS4 and
Right.
uh, Xbox One like the Elden Ring was and everything. So if I'm not mistaken, that's
Yeah,
what
and
they
I just looked it up. It's Chinese developer Game Science, and that novel that it's based on is Journey to the West. It's a 16th century Chinese novel.
okay. But I mean, game looks stunning. Looks really cool. Looks like some exciting. It's it's cool. Like we're I feel like we're finally getting to this point that Soulsborne or Souls like is not this like everybody's doing a Souls like game. It's become more of like and like how Metroidvania. I wonder if like if when Metroidvania first started being used, it's like everybody's trying to put out. It's like this game that does like what Metroid and
Yep.
Castlevania does. It's like no, it's not that like Souls like means that everybody's just trying to copy FromSoft. It's that FromSoft created a genre,
A genre. Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's now like I feel like we're transitioning to that where it's like it's being accepted as a genre, not just a copycat,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so it's kind of a cool way to do it. This looks cool.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend go checking out the trailer to all our listeners. If I had to describe it visually, you're kind of like a monkey man with a staff with different powers, and you're fighting giant creatures. Now I understand that there is smaller enemies, but it's mostly like one-on-one stuff. You're not going to get into big group fights, no Dynasty Warrior style thing or anything like that. So it's not quite boss rush game, but kind of is. But the monsters and the creatures and the design look amazing, and the graphics, like you said, true next gen game. This looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't confuse this with Wolong Dynasty that came
Yeah,
out earlier this year on
yeah,
Game Pass. It's also a Souls like.
yeah,
Uh, not a bad game, but not as exciting as this one looks.
yeah. And I definitely confused those before. So,
Yeah, same. I have to remember like, wait, which one? What is the name of this one? I can like distinguish the difference between the games, but I'm like, wait, is this Wukong or Wolong?
yeah, yep, yep. So how about Killing Floor 3? What are your thoughts on this one?
So we played some Killing Floor back in the day. I think
Yep,
we played maybe a little bit of Killing Floor too. I can't remember the one I played the most of, but I played a lot of one of them. And as far as zombie games that are not Left 4 Dead,
yeah.
this is probably was my favorite. And so I'm excited to see. I don't know that I'm gonna pick this up, but if I see it come on Game Pass or or get or we decide that we want to jump in, or I
Humble
have like a
Bundle
friend
or
that wants to jump
something.
in, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, I will gladly try this out. And the fact that it's on console, like, or if it comes out and it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's just like, this game is absolutely amazing. It's like, okay, well, maybe I'll jump into
yeah,
it. But I had a lot of fun with Killing Floor. This looks good.
yeah,
It looks like more and improved of Killing Floor. So,
yep.
what about how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, pretty good. Welcome surprise, right? So Killing Floor 1 and 2, fun co-op zombie killing games. little more advanced than like a Call of Duty Zombies, I think. Dives deeper into there. There's different monsters and power ups, and you're getting money and spending the money to get things. It, it's it's a little more brutal too. Like it's a little more grotesque than like a Call of Duty Zombies, but overall, a very good game if you're into this type of thing and playing with some friends and trying to survive. And yeah, very welcome surprise again to have Killing Floor 3 coming. And I'm the same as you. I'm not gonna rush out and buy it right away, but if the reviews are great, I'll try and pick it up maybe on a sale or a bundle where we can all play. And yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Cool. Crimson Desert is the next one.
Oh
Uh,
man.
there's Black Desert,
Black Desert
right?
Online, right? Black
On
Desert
Black Desert
Online.
Online, and
Yep.
this is the same developer,
Yep.
I believe. It's that's making this Crimson Desert, which seems to be like the initial goal was like, let's make a single player ish version ish of of Black Desert Online, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
This trailer has a lot going on,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to pinpoint what this game is. I'm amazed, but also at the same time, like, am I amazed as I watch this trailer? Like, or is it very flashy, or is this actually look like it's going to be amazing? Is this? I think a Reddit comment that I saw was kind of nailed it right on the head. It was like, I won't be surprised if this is comes out as hot garbage or comes out and is game of the year material. Like, I agree. I'm hopeful. I hope it's closer to that game of the year material side, right? Because we just want more great games. And if it is a high quality game, what I saw looks fun, looked great,
Yeah.
looks like my kind of game. How about you?
Yeah, so just to give some background, this is the developers Perlibis. They had Black Desert Online before, right? Which was like this really cool online RPG game. But there was like a lot going on. They pulled in a lot of different genres, and you had to sink so much time into it, and it was very unique, right? And then they come out with this one, as you said. It's a single player RPG. Something to note is it's not just next gen. I think it's on Xbox One and PS4. So that has me a little like worried, like, okay, what is that going to mean for the game? But the trailer is just, I mean, definitely go check it out. It's just like action after action after action. It's like a crazy movie trailer. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to fight this giant dragon. We're going to jump off a cliff and fly. And you can see so many different games and genres as inspiration in this trailer. You're like, okay, that looked kind of like Mass Effect. That kind of looked like Breath of the Wild. That part looked like Dragon's Dogma. Like they were just pulling everything. Oh, and you can fish and you can cook and you can fight these guys and you can craft weapons. Just so many different things. And every single thing I was like, wow, that's sweet. That's sweet. That's sweet. But then you take a step back and you're like, all right, how does this all fit together
Right.
in the big
How do you put this
picture?
into one game?
Yeah. Are you just throwing all this crap in here, or is there actually a through line and it makes sense to play this? There's a good gameplay loop. Because if they have a good
Right.
gameplay loop, watch out. This game is going to be
Yeah.
incredible, right?
Yeah. Or it's just a bunch of crap mashed together that doesn't flow, and we actually find out it's all quick time events. No.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a single player action RPG, I'm more interested, right? I don't have a ton of time to play like an MMO as much as I would love to. I don't want to pay a bunch of money or keep dumping stuff into it. So if I can buy this game and play it and get all these things and the Black Desert Online experience, but in a more confined box for a single price, I'm in. So I'll
Yeah.
definitely be keeping an eye on this one.
Yeah. 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 Same. And it may come out and be a game that is well received. But if it's for me, the thing that I'm worried about would be that it comes out and it plays like an MMO.
Yeah.
And like a single player MMO, which appeals to people, but that doesn't appeal to me. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah, so that would be like, I could see it still being, potentially game of the year material, but still not be for me.
Yeah. I could see it being like a Final Fantasy on crack, basically, like just to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
max, right?
That's kind of what I'm thinking of, like, right? Like this nonstop action is like, it makes me think of these Final Fantasy 16 trailers that we had leading up to Fantasy 16, which was well
Right.
received.
Right. So next up we had Alan Wake 2. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so I know you're a lot more excited about this. You've been talking about it. You were like, I'm going to play through these games and Max Payne and all this stuff. And there's this connected universe with control and all that stuff that seems really fascinating. I think it looks cool. I'm kind of back and forth on whether like, okay, do I want to jump into this? I don't think I'm going to jump right into Alan Wake 2. I don't know that I feel like I would have to jump into at least Alan Wake, if not some of the Max Payne, the Control. I haven't played any of these games.
Yeah.
Uh, I could probably watch a YouTube video, get caught up, and then just jump into it. But this actually got delayed to avoid the up from October 17th to October 27th, and I think it was to avoid the big hitter that day on October 17th, which is Sonic Superstars, right?
I think that's it.
No,
Maybe a
but
different S. Maybe a different S.
yeah, so that game comes out, but also Spider-Man 2 is obviously the huge hitter that day, and then
Right.
Super Mario RPG or no, Super Mario Wonder comes out that day.
Yeah.
So we have huge hitter on Nintendo, right? The first like innovative 2D Mario game in a long time,
Yep.
and then obviously Spider-Man 2, which is going to be the biggest hit of the year on PlayStation.
Yep.
So for I think Alan Wake just kind of wanted to steer away from some of the and it needed, I think it needed to come out before Halloween. It just comes out right before Halloween.
Yeah.
It's a Halloween type game, right? It's this creepy vibe game that has
Yep.
like it's into nightmares and all this other stuff, right? Like because all this the story takes place in Alan Wake's head. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you played the first one, you know that he's an author, right? And so he's like writing the story, and it's like, is it taking place in his head? Is he living the events of his book, and so on? So I won't spoil any of that for anybody, but yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to this as well. I think it was smart for them to move this. This is right up my alley, right? Like I like Resident Evil. This game, they are taking it away from the original Alan Wake gameplay loop, moving it more to a Resident Evil 4 style of games, Silent Hill style. So if you're into that, you're probably going to like this. The surprise element you mentioned is the shared universe. So all of these games from the same developer, the Max Payne series, which there's a little iffiness around losing the rights to that to another place, but for all intents and purposes, Max Payne, right? Control, which was a great game, and the Alan Wake series are all being combined, right? This shared universe. So that always excites me. Like, what little tidbits can you find, and how do they connect? And the graphically, the game looks incredible, absolutely incredible. There was some leaked gameplay today, actually, showing some of this, and dude, I'm blown away. So really looking forward to this one. Um, I'm picking up the heavy hitters: Starfield, Baldur's Gate, Spider Man, maybe Super Mario Wonder. But this is right after that. It's right after those to play for me. So
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people are really excited about this game, for sure. Some of it's this is like the anticipated game out of the loaded back half of this year that we have. Alan Wake 2 is the game for some people.
so what's up next for Gamescom?
Sonic Superstars, we
All
brought in.
right.
Uh, I love Sonic. I don't know. Are you interested in Sonic?
You know what? I like Sonic. I'm not gonna call myself a super fan or anything. I've played a number of the games. This might be sacrilegious, but my favorite's probably Sonic R, the racing game. Like I just love that game from when I was a kid. But I'm not overly excited. I'll definitely pay attention, but I'm not rushing out to pick this up day one. How about you?
Yeah. Different time of year, different year. I might be picking this up. Although I think this is like a $60 game. I
Shut
love
up.
Sonic
No
Mania.
way. No way.
I love Sonic Mania for $20.
Yeah.
I could see this being 30, $40 or something, but $60, like I know $70 is now full price game, and maybe the $60 tier is supposed to be this $50 game, but even a $50 game a few years ago, this just seems like that's a little too much maybe for this game. I think actually that upping that price point from $60 to $70 for like the big AAA titles
Yeah.
hurts this like $50 to $60 jump more than it hurts the $60 to $70 jump.
Yeah. And to
But
be clear,
because
this is not like a 3D game or anything. This is the old school side
right,
scroller. And it is co-op like up to 4 players. So that's cool, but to your point, I don't think it's worth the price
yeah,
tag.
yeah. I mean, they're stepping out of the pixel art graphics. They're getting like this 2.5D HD. Yeah, like it looks like they are trying to innovate, and it looks good. The game looks crisp, it looks clean, it looks like it's going to be an awesome game. It looks fun. Just I don't know, $60 seems like a lot, but
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
Sonic
tough.
fans are going to Sonic, so
Gotta go
it'll
fast.
sell. I just yeah right. I just need Xbox to buy wrap up this ABK deal, buy Sega, and then throw it on Game Pass.
Now then I would play them. Like if I
Right?
didn't have to pay for them, I feel bad saying that, but
Yeah.
I would be more apt to play them, right?
Yeah, I would probably like I said, different time of year, and if this was a $30 game, I'd be all over it.
Right.
I bought Sonic Mania day one, and I was really glad with that happy with that purchase. This looks like this is going to be great. Um, it's a for team. It's got this cool co-op. It's got a cool battle mode.
Yeah.
So there's some cool stuff that this game is doing. But with everything else that's coming out that day, and just around that time, this time in general, uh, maybe later on a sale.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and then I think we got two more here. How about
Yeah,
Armored
so that
Core
was Sonic
6?
Superstars.
Yep, and
Comes out October 17th.
how about Armored Core 6? This is from
Uh,
software.
yeah, so I think this might be the biggest game I'm not excited about. Um, I've never played an Armor Core game. Most people have not played an Armor Core game, and FromSoft has put themselves on the map since the last time the Armor Core was relevant.
Right.
So I think you're probably going to have a lot of people out there like, oh yeah, cool, the next FromSoft game. It's like Dark Souls, but with mechs, and I don't think this game is going to be that. And I think they're going
No,
to have a
yeah.
lot of confused day one purchases. To be honest, are you excited about Armored Core? Have you ever played Armored Core?
Yes, I've played Armored Core before. I'm definitely into the big mech thing. I love like Gundam and Gundam Wing and so on. I would love to play this game. It's just coming out at a time when there is so many good games coming out, and I only have so much money and so much time. So I will definitely try and pick this one up later. It's at a Metacritic score of 87 right now, so that's pretty good, right? It's not the high
Yeah,
90s, but that's definitely passable, buyable, playable. Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Especially for the type of game it is, right? I think the
yeah,
highest Armored Core game was like 78 prior to
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So, 87 is early. I think relatively early. There's still probably more reviews coming in,
Yep.
but so it could go up or down a little bit. But it's probably a good idea where it's going to be high 80s, right?
Right.
And I don't want to say that I'm not at all interested or excited about this game. I've never really played mech games. If it comes out and that people, and people continue to rave about it, maybe I check it out at some point, but probably not.
Right. Yeah, and you made a good point, right? So from software, they've done Dark Souls and Elden Ring, and come back to Armored Core and might shock some people that weren't Armored Core fans before, which there probably wasn't a lot, to be honest. Their success has allowed them to come back and do this, right? So it's not the same type of game, so you can't come in expecting that, and it'll be interesting to see how well it sells and if it justifies another go in the series or not.
I think it'll easily be their most successful Armored Core game,
Oh yeah, yeah,
just
for
because
sure.
of the pedigree that FromSoft has developed and the reputation that they have, and that comes out next week, this week, the right before Starfield, right?
Yeah, the last week of August here. Yep. So the final one actually kind of ties into our main theme for today with the remakes, remasters, and ports, and that's Age of Empires 4 Shadow Drop on the Xbox. It's already been out on PC, but at Gamescom they said, "Hey, go download this today and try it out." What do you think?
This is out of this list today. This is the probably the first game I will play out of the list. I started downloading it on my Xbox already.
Yep.
I You got me into Age of Empires 2, a remaster.
Yeah.
So relevant to the topic earlier this year, and that was I think my first real experience with Age of Empires. Not necessarily like RTS. I played some kind of RTS back in the day and stuff, and enjoyed it, but um, I am. Because of the excitement I have with Age of Empires 2, I'm really, really, really excited to jump into this game. I might actually even jump into this before Starfield, at least check it out.
Whoa.
Because like I can play it now, and it's like
Yeah.
I've got a week before or whatever before Starfield. So yeah, no, this is one I'm really excited to play.
So you're saying we're playing this weekend?
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, I
Think
installed it as well.
like that's good to hear. Yeah, as long as I'm not playing Zelda.
Yeah. Hey, man, like I'm super excited about this. I haven't heard how it runs yet. Obviously, they shadow dropped it. I love the Xbox streak of shadow dropping stuff. Like, hey, boom, it's done, it's ready. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully, it's a good port. Hopefully, it plays well. Age of Empires 2 HD did really well on the Xbox. I thought it was very easy to pick up and play. I'm really looking forward to trying this one out. Any listeners out there, viewers, if you're excited about this, let us know. If you're not excited about it, let us know. Curious to see what you guys think about this and the shadow drop in the port here.
Yeah, yeah, and Gamescom as a whole. Are there anything that you're excited about? I mean, jump into the Discord or comment on YouTube. We will try to respond to pretty much anything you put out there right now. We don't have a whole lot of interaction yet, so we're able to interact with pretty much everything so far. So,
Yep.
the more we get, the more excited that we are to hear about what your thoughts are on the show. On sorry, I'm just gonna jump in there and plug the Discord, and YouTube right now, real quick. But yeah, no, please jump in. We've had some comments on YouTube. We've had a little bit of conversation on Discord. We get really excited about it, and we're excited to hear about what you have to say about the show, about the content of the show, right? Like your thoughts on things like Gamecom and the topics we'll be talking about, but also like what topics do you want to hear, and what you thought about the show, and if where we can improve, or where what you thought was really great. Um, Sorry, I was gonna I was gonna cover this at the end of the episode, but I just kind of jumped
No,
right into
yeah,
that
it's good. It's
while we brought it up.
shameless plug. No, it's fine.
That's right.
Yeah, in all seriousness, guys, if you enjoy what we're doing or if you have feedback for us, give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, and leave us the feedback, and we're gonna keep improving. So let's jump on to our next thing, and that's diving more into the remakes, remasters, and ports, and just a couple news relevant topics around this. Red Dead Redemption being brought forth to PS4, PS5 by back compat, and the Switch, as well as the Metal Gear collection, which is the first three games coming forward to all major platforms. And there's quite a bit of controversy around this and the performance of these, and that's kind of why we want to talk about remakes, remasters, and ports today. Evan, what are your thoughts on this, and do you want to cover any of the main points of why are these game releases getting backlash?
Yeah. So you said the Red Dead is kind of the big one right now. So I'll talk to that first. Uh, well, first off, the Switch port or Switch. Is it a port? Is it a remaster? I think this is
It's
really
just a
just a
direct
port.
port. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like all this
So
time you
that's
guys just
part
ported
of
it over.
that's part of the problem. I think that was part of the negative response to this, aside from the Switch fan base, because Nintendo fans are just happy to get. First off, this is the first natively handheld way to play Red Dead. This isn't on Steam, right? This isn't
Right.
on PC. This game isn't on PC. So, and it's not coming to PC. That was also part of the backlash.
Yeah. No,
So
it's rough.
there's a lot of things wrong with the Red Dead that's causing the controversy. I will say the one thing that is right is Nintendo fans just seem to be excited to be able to play this game
Right,
on
right.
their Nintendo console and play it in a handheld. It seems to run just fine, better than the 360 version, and from what I understand. So based on Digital Foundry's video on it and everything. So the good thing is it's coming to Nintendo, and we can play some on Nintendo. It runs better than the GTA trilogy did.
That's not low
On
bar,
the
low
Switch,
bar.
very low bar. But that speaks into the we'll get a little bit into the Rockstar greediness that they have. They're out there to just really, our games are going to sell, so we don't really care how quality is, because just like people buy Madden and Call of Duty every year, people buy
Pokemon.
Red Dead and GTA regardless of how good how well it performs,
Right.
because it's just that big.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's the Game Freak approach.
yeah, exactly. No, that's another one. The Pokemon, like, it doesn't have to perform well. It doesn't have to be a good game. People are going to buy it. So why put the effort in if we can just still sell millions of copies? Uh, Frustrating, but whatever, it leaves room for other creators out there to come actually put a good product in and succeed. But yeah, so the backlash again is not coming to PC, so you're not getting this.
Yep.
The other rumors were like we're getting a remaster, maybe a remake, this that this is happening with it, and so people are like, okay, I can't wait to play 4K 60 Red Dead,
Yeah.
and uh, are we even getting 60 frames on this?
No, no, 30 frames.
So yeah, that's people are really frustrated with that, and they should be, and Rockstar doesn't care. They're not going to care. They're still going to sell 10 million copies of this thing.
Yeah, that's really
And
rough.
yeah, so it's not getting a release to the Xbox, right?
Right.
But it's because it's the same game that's already released on Xbox through backwards compatibility.
Yes.
So, you can't this is locked on the PS3 right now. So it's not playable on PS4 or PS5. So they're just making a PS4 version that also plays on the PS5. And so now you can play it on those consoles. You can already play it on the Xbox One and the Xbox Series consoles because it's again through backwards compatibility that you just can't have with all the issues that backwards compat has for PS3.
Yeah.
And then also now you can play it on a Nintendo console for the first time.
Right. Yeah, and I think part of the controversy too is the price point, right? They're charging $50 for this, and for what feels like a lazy port, man, that's tough, especially because, as pointed out by other YouTubers and posters online, you could go buy a copy of this game on Amazon right now. The old version of this game, it's the exact same, for much less. I think like $30, and it has
Right.
the Undead Nightmare in it as well. So, I'm very happy for Switch fans and for Sony people to be able to play this, but come on, Rockstar, come on, 2K, what are we doing here? This is a little ridiculous in my opinion. It's a lazy port, still no PC release, no PC love for any of us PC gamers, and no new assets, no new textures, still 30 frames. It just feels like a cash grab. It really does. Hey, listeners, just to let you know, we had some technical difficulties recording this episode, so we're re recording the latter part of this episode you're about to hear. We do all our shows unscripted with an outline, so please forgive us if any of these topics or small bits of discussion you've heard already in this episode. And we really appreciate your viewership, and we hope you enjoyed the rest of the episode. So, going from the Red Dead controversy over to the Metal Gear controversy, do we want to jump into this, Evan? And what are your thoughts? If you want to inform the viewers here what the deal is with this Metal Gear Solid collection coming out.
Yeah, sure. So Metal Gear started as a little bit of a controversy, and there was kind of the similar stuff of like that Red Dead had, where it's just like, oh, this is coming out, and it's going to be 720p, 30 frames per second kind of thing. And then like the next day, Konami comes out and says, no, we're shooting for 720, 30 on the Switch handhelds, 1080, 30 on the on docked, and then on the other consoles, the PS4 and Xbox, because I think it's PS4 and Xbox One, and then as well as PS5 and
Yep.
Xbox Series. I don't know if there's unique editions for both, but they're shooting for, I believe, it was a 1080 60,
Yep.
and on both of those. So they quickly squashed that. I think it's funny because I think if they came out and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing 1080 60," people are like, "Why isn't this 4K?"
Yeah.
But because it came, this leak happened that it was going to be 720 at first, and then it was like 1080. It was like, "Oh, that's so much better."
Yeah.
And so it kind of maybe worked out well for them. I don't know, maybe they planted something, but no, I I think it's all right. But 1080 60, I don't know, that works for me. 60 frames a second, that's a key for me.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked by the 720/30 on the Switch handheld. Granted, it's the least powerful console out of this current generation or this last generation, but this game ran 60 frames per second. Metal Gear Solid 2 did, on the PS2. And this collection, again, for the listeners, has games 1, 2, and 3 from back in the day brought into this collection. It was released, I believe, in the Xbox 360 PS3 era, or no, was it in PS4 era?
I think it was like the PS3,
Yeah.
Xbox 360.
Right. And now they're
Yeah.
gonna release it again, right? So that's why one quarrel with this is Dude, the Switch, even though it's the least powerful, is a million times more powerful than a PS2, and that ran it at 60 frames, and you're running at 30 handheld here. So that, to me, can be an example of a lazy port, perhaps. Hey, we're just going to port this up. No optimization, no nothing. Have at it, and let's cash in. What do you think about that?
I think to some degree, a lot of these publishers, developers, or whatever, they're just like Switch users are just happy to be here. Uh, like I mean, that's how the Red Dead stuff went. All right, so
Hmm.
like the Red Dead YouTube video was massively disliked for the trailer for like the PS4, PS5. Uh, but the Switch version of the trailer or whatever the Nintendo version was actually upvoted.
Yeah,
People they're like, we're just happy to have Red Dead,
yeah, a different
and
breed.
yeah, it really is. Uh, it'd be interesting to see if that ever changes. But Nintendo's just not in a power race, and they haven't been really since. I mean, really since the Wii launch, it was their step away from the power. I think the race of power.
Right. And I actually wonder if maybe that'll change a little bit as more of these companies get into the mobile thing. Because I think that was a big boon to Nintendo. It was like, hey, this game doesn't play the best, but I've got it on the go now. It's on the Switch. I can take it wherever. But these other companies are jumping in and getting these mobile solutions. So maybe that we'll see a tonal shift there in the Nintendo fan base. I'm not sure.
Sure. And at some point, like you hit a point of diminishing returns in terms of the power and everything. It's like, how much better do these things need to look? If I'm getting, just if 10 times more the power out of the consoles than they currently have, then, I guess you're, starting to hit like currently what a GTX 4090 or something would be or something like that. But it's kind of hitting points where we've talked about this in previous episodes. You don't need things to look so they can only look so much better. And uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think at some point, your handheld chip is not noticeable to most people, the difference.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, Moore's law is dead in a way, right? We're starting to see diminishing returns, even in other technical areas like a phone and stuff.
well, I think because of Moore's law, everything's getting more compute on a smaller chip.
Hmm.
So it's just like, you know, we're getting to the point where it's just like, yeah, Moore's law I think is still applies. It's just it's not noticeable to the human eye when it comes to
Okay.
visuals on a video game.
That's a fair point. So Nintendo's next console is going to be quantum compute, right? Get
Right,
around
that's
this.
right.
And then really quick, I wanted to ask a question. Do you think companies do that where they have disappointing news or low effort things, and so they're like, you know what, let's leak this out. Let's put the bar super low out there, so then when we come out with the actual news, we seem like good guys. Like it's incrementally better to your point. Whereas if they would have just come out with that news forthright, it sounds terrible and everybody's ticked off.
Maybe
I, yeah.
another interesting one to bring up would be Baldur's Gate on Xbox, right?
Hmm.
We just found out, they're in an interview with Phil Spencer, and I think the Larian also came out and said, "Hey, we've had a conversation with Xbox and Phil Spencer. We're coming out with this. We're really targeting to get this game out by the end of the year, and split screen will only be on Series X. It won't be on Series S right now,
Hmm.
and yeah, so." That's interesting. I kind of think that Larian was just like, I don't want to compete with Starfield. And Xbox is like, no, you don't want to compete with Starfield. So we don't. It's not a big deal if you don't come out on today, on this day.
Yeah.
And they now have 3 launches of this game. The first one was
Oh,
incredible. The second one is looking to be incredible,
yeah.
and the third one is probably going to now be way better than it would have been on Xbox if it released the same day as it does on the PS5, which is like right around the same day, if not the same day as
Right.
the official launch for Starfield. I think it's September 6th for both of those.
Yeah. So conspiracy or happy accident? We'll let the viewers decide on that
Yeah,
one. You guys drop a
right.
comment if you have any thoughts on that. So jumping up to our next topic, remakes, remasters, ports. Are they good, bad? How do we feel about them? Are we indifferent? Do we like them? Do we have a negative feeling towards them? I'll let you start off.
Yeah, so first I think we should define what a port, a remaster, or a remake is, and we'll start with a remake. Easiest to define, kind of the hardest to do for a developer, because it is a ground up rebuild, right? So it's like you're stripping down the whole bathroom. It's not let's put a fresh coat of paint on the walls. Let's
Right.
tear down the walls. We're moving bathtubs, replacing things, right? You're rebuilding assets. You're really taking I want to say more than just inspiration from the original game, but you're
Hmm.
taking the original game's story. And I mean, even sometimes there you're making some twists. I mean, Final Fantasy VII is kind of the first is this first. I don't want to say first, but is one big one that I think is it almost blurs the lines between remake and reboot.
Hmm.
But they call it Final Fantasy VII Remake, so it's just like the story is mostly the same from what I understand, but they do add some things. They do change some things.
Hmm.
So that's what you get. That's what you get in a remake, right? A remaster. And I'm sorry, I want to say one thing about it, a remake too is like oftentimes you get even different types of gameplay. Again, with Fantasy Seven, you had a mostly turn based, and I think there's a little more action oriented combat and things like
Hmm.
that. And so sometimes the gameplay can even change a little bit and just be modernized not just by controls but the way the actual game plays. A remaster might modernize controls. It'll bring I think Metroid Prime is the example to look at here. It came out and people almost wanted to call it a remake because of how good they did the remaster, but they
Hmm.
took the original game. It uses that original code. It just and they enhanced the resolution. They took the assets, cleaned them up a little bit, but they didn't rebuild anything.
Right.
They used the original game, and it as far as the campaign, the story, and all that stuff, you're doing the same exact thing, start to finish in the game, uh,
Definitely a
and it
fresh
just
coat of
looks a
paint,
whole lot better.
right?
It plays a whole lot better, yeah.
Yeah, fresh coat of paint.
And I think the way to think about it is that it. It plays the way you remember playing it the first time, right? Because
Yeah.
instead of looking dated, it actually looks current. But that's it. It
That's just
just
how you
it
remember it, right? You're like, yeah, this looks
right.
exactly like it did when I was a kid. And then you go back and look at the real thing, and you're like, wow, that's just blocks and polygons.
Yeah, it's so blurry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a port is exactly just bringing the game forward. Sometimes that resolution could be it can be up-resed, but they just scale the resolution, right? They don't go and clean any assets up. They're not touching the lighting or anything like you might do in a remaster. You're just bringing the game as it is, as it was, and like I said, maybe just turning the dial to turn the resolution up. I don't know exactly
Yep.
how. It's. I think it's for a developer to port things isn't necessarily that easy. As well as sometimes ports can also be like from the Wii U or 3DS to the Switch is a good example where you do have to revise the controls to fit the console that it's on. But there's not any uh anything really beyond that is in a port. And some good examples for ports, I think, would be you look at like collections. A lot of times is where you get those. You get like the Capcom collections. You got like Mega Man and Castlevania and all these collections that come out. Sonic. Those are good examples of the ports that from Sonic from Sega. But where the games are as they were, and collections is a great way to bring that because you get a bunch of games for one price as opposed to having to pay 50, 60, $70 for one game that
Right.
is 25 years old, which sometimes you do for a remaster or and oftentimes for a remake. I mean, you're gonna have to pay $70 three times for the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And a port, I think, is pretty common in like the indie realm too, right? So the indie team or indie person or indie dev studio, they come out with a game, they make it just for PC, for example. It's a hit or a success. They think they can replicate that success on a console. Now they have to work to port that over, right? And what does that look like? And they're not remaking the game, they're not remastering the game. They're just trying to get the thing running on another platform, have the controls mapped correctly, and maybe some upscaling in graphics if that platform can handle it, right? So you'll see that a lot of times in the terms of ports, but ports can go very wrong, right? Because making something for PC in a certain engine and then putting it on a different engine on a different platform, it's not always one to one as a developer. And the question is, are you going to take the time to optimize that? And what's the return on investment? And I think a lot of times we see people just push the port over or contract it out, and we end up with really bad ports, which we'll talk about here in a little bit.
yeah, yeah. No, I think we could just probably just name a few of those that recently came out
Sure.
that didn't go so well, right? Like Last of Us Part One,
Yep.
getting ported to PC was very. I mean, it just ran like garbage, and people couldn't play it, hated it. Hogwarts Legacy has had a lot of issues, and I think it still does have issues. We had Dead Space, which was the Dead Space remake came out on consoles and was great, but the PC version ran like garbage, and uh, PC and Switch seem to be the victims most of the time. You
Yeah.
usually don't see it the other way around, right? But which is interesting. But typically they just target the PS4 and Xbox, or I'm sorry, PS4, PlayStation and Xbox are at this point run very similar. They're very similar consoles in terms of hardware, which and they were last gen, this gen. Obviously, the PS3 was different with that cell processor, but they're basically like contained PCs at this point that you
Right.
can target very specific specs, and so those ports generally are those are usually where the devs target. It seems like for a lot of third parties, and then when they bring them to other platforms, they're like, okay, now let's move this to PC, or now let's move this to Switch, and off. Sometimes you see them kind of be victim the platforms be victim of the bad ports. And sometimes you see good ones. You see
Yeah.
Panic Button put out a lot of good products that they did a lot of good porting to, or Virtuos and stuff too.
Yep.
Um,
And I think that's where like things like Unreal Engine are gaining more traction, and Unity for a while too, just because they're starting to try to make this engine the same across all those major platforms, right? So that's their kind of value to the developers. Hey, you develop on this, it should pretty much run the same on the XYZ platform for a port or a simultaneous release. So maybe over time as that extrapolates out, then we'll get better and better ports, if you will. But maybe not. I don't know. Time will tell. So, do we want to run through some notable titles really quick? You mentioned a couple, some of the bad ports, but what about some good and maybe mixed results on the other ones? I think first up we have Quake 2 just came out.
yeah, so Quake 2's got a lot of praise for that coming out. It's a remaster, and people are loving it. I downloaded it myself. I never played, but boomer shooters are getting a resurgence here, and it seems like in the last year or two, um, there's a lot of love for you're getting new games like Proteus that have coming out, but people loving like the old ones, Doom and Quake, and Wolfenstein are some of the big hits, and I downloaded it, played it on the multiplayer a little bit, and we got absolutely destroyed. Um, I don't know. I just don't have quick enough thumbs anymore, I guess. I don't play enough. I don't know. I guess enough first person shooters anymore. But I had a little bit of fun with it. But I was just like I said, getting absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
Before I could figure out what was going on,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I downloaded it and I did enjoy it. I had some in the region I'm in some high latency, so that was a little bit of a problem. But the game, right? It's an old game, boomer shooter, as you said, kind of based on that Doom Quake engine, and it's like an arena style shooter, right? So it's very fast paced. You're moving quick. You're picking up guns. You're jumping and shooting. So it's definitely a different pace than more of the modern shooters you have today. But I thought it was a good remaster for what it was. Everything's upscaled. It runs really well. There's no issues. Granted, it's a super, super old game, so it's not overly demanding. But hey, they have it running correctly, and you can get online and play it or play the single player. So good on them for doing that.
Yeah, yeah. There's something that appeals to me in those, and I'll keep trying them out, but I didn't really. I only played the campaign on Doom. Didn't really care for it,
Hmm.
and then I tried the multiplayer here in Quake. Didn't really care for it, but there's something that feels like kind of for whatever reason close to like Halo Combat Evolved, like the original first Halo. Playing multiplayer on that, that feels like it's not a boomer shooter, but that just feels like the an evolution of the boomer
Yeah,
shooter. That
you're
was
missing
really the
the
first.
gap pieces probably from Quake to like Quake 3 Arena and Unreal Tournament, like Unreal Tournament 2004 maybe is
Oh
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
gap piece. So that was, and then you have Halo kind of came out at that same time a little after, and probably
Hmm.
took heavy inspiration from that, especially in Halo Combat Evolved.
Yeah, I forgot Unreal. I played a little bit of Unreal, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually
But
a
yeah,
map in
so
Unreal that's very similar to one of the maps in Halo. So
oh, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. Up
Yeah.
next, what do you
So
want to go with?
I was gonna say Metroid Prime.
Hmm.
We touched on it just in defining a remaster, and really that should be the bar for a remaster, in my opinion. That was
Right.
it's such an excellent way to play the game. I've talked before about how I pretty much skipped it back in the GameCube. I played it for an hour and was like, "Oh, this isn't for me. I don't like having to rush out of this tunnel. I don't like, feeling like this pressure that's pushing me forward. I just want to stop and smell the roses." Uh, and I realized that after like the first hour, once I got through that part, if I would have just kept playing, you don't really have that anymore.
Yeah.
So and it turns into a lot of awesome puzzling and you know n- but anyway, not to talk about the game, just the itself, because I think I've already done that. But the remaster itself, it plays like, I mean, it just looked like that game could have came out today and been excellent. So
Hmm.
to take a game that's 20 or whatever years old and still make it something that plays really really well by just remastering it, I mean, just wonderful job
Yeah.
for Metro.
Yep. I haven't played this one. Well, I played the original and beat it back when we used to rent games from stores. Yeah, I'm that old. But it was great back then, and I imagine it's great now. I've heard nothing but glowing things about the remaster, and it sounds like a great example of a remaster done right, as you said. So good on them.
Yeah. I've got Resident Evil 4 next here on my list.
Hmm.
That's something I think it would be a great entry for me into the franchise. It's a modern way to play the game. That's when I think Resident Evil first took their step into a little less horror, a little more action
Hmm.
oriented. I mean, it's still very much a survival horror, right, franchise, but not as maybe scary as the first three. Um, Yeah, you've played the original, but you haven't played the remake. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. It's definitely on my list. I've played the other remakes, the one, two, and three, all really well done as well. This one is like setting the bar even higher from what I've heard and read. And the original game was one of the GOAT games as well, especially in this type of genre. Capcom, you're correct, took it from more of that um, survival horror. It's still survival horror, but it's more action oriented, and it's gets rid of those tank controls. Is switched to an over the shoulder view instead of like an isometric view where each room had a fixed camera and you had to run around the room. This one, the camera's following you over the shoulder, right? And it was kind of the turn of that genre and started to inspire the industry from there. Got some cool
Hmm.
elements in it where you can buy upgrades and stuff as you go through. So it's got this like almost little RPG element twist. You're not like role playing, but you know that like I'm gonna upgrade this. I'm gonna get some of these
Leveling up
items.
and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's got
Okay.
awesome bonus modes. So Resident Evil always has like these bonus modes you can do at the end, right? This one was called, I believe, Mercenaries. And it's like you get to play these different characters. They each one has like a special power. Maybe this one starts with a better
Hmm.
gun, but he moves slower or whatever. And you do these different missions and collect things and defeat enemies. And you won't like it maybe because it's you're under pressure. You have this time counting down, and for every zombie you kill, you get like plus 5 seconds to your time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun though, and yeah, well, I think we'll talk about this one a little bit at the end of the episode because this one is top notch from what we've heard, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy to think. I think two of the highest rated games in Metacritic this year are 20-year-old games from the GameCube, right?
Yep, yep, remastered,
Uh,
yes,
yeah, Metroid remaster and Resident Evil 4 remake.
right.
Yeah, and then back to not necessarily a GameCube game, but a Nintendo game here. The Super Mario RPG would be the next one, right? This comes out on November 17th, in
Hmm.
November, um, and uh, this one looks pretty good. It's a remake, but it stays a little more true to the original game, from what I understand. But instead, it just totally strays away from like pixel art or pixel graphics, 16-bit graphics, and it brings it into modern art style, right?
Yeah, it looks
But
great.
it still somehow maintains that feel. From what I understand, people that did play and love this game, in its time, were just like, oh, this again, kind of this is how I remember it, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But it's clearly modern you know, 3D, you know, art style as opposed to, you know, like a pixel art style.
Right.
Yeah, this is a game that I'm looking forward to. I love RPGs, and this one's a relatively short one, so I'm like, okay, I can, I think squeeze this in a little more easily than, you know, some of the other games. It's like, oh, I want to play this, but I only have 150 hours this year for Starfield and not
Right.
another game, or you know, maybe Baldur's Gate, right? Like
Yeah.
if I'm putting over 100 hours into any more games this year, it's Starfield and then Baldur's Gate 3.
Right.
So it's nice to have one like that. Yeah, are you looking forward to this?
And it's to be clear, it's a remake, right? Because there are
It
things
is a
changed. Yeah,
remake.
it's not just like
Yeah.
upscaling and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. This is a beloved entry in the franchise, right? It was highly rated when it originally came out. Unfortunately, by the time I knew about it or could play it, I was on to bigger and better things, right? Like it was harder to get a copy, then you got to emulate or whatever. And so this is a great way for someone like me that is interested in this game, likes the Mario franchise. They're remaking the game, and now I can jump in and try it out, or maybe play, and my kids can watch or learn about how to play this game. So yeah, definitely interested, and I think this is where a remake can go right. It's something the fans have been asking for, I think, for a while. Nintendo heard that, listened. Obviously, they're in it to make money too, but they didn't just do a lazy port. They said, "Hey, we're going to bring this up to modern times. We're going to remake it how we think it should be, with the capabilities we have now." And here we go. Hopefully, it gets really good reviews.
Yeah, absolutely.
While on the topic of Mario, do you want to do a little mention of the big change over in the Mario scene with the voice of Mario?
Yeah, so we have Charles Martinet. He is being promoted, I believe, to Mario Ambassador or something
Hmm.
is his title. So he will, after 30 years, he will no longer be the voice of Mario.
Yeah.
So that's you know, it's interesting. You know, he's just kind of, you know, gets to walk off into the sunset. You know, he gets
Hmm.
to enjoy still, you know, that being that ambassador, going to the events, and still he seems to have a great time doing that. Like
Right.
anytime you hear about people meeting him at like conventions or something like PAX or whatever, he's just always happy to be, you know, a part of that, and really like just be a Mario ambassador. So
Right.
so that's really cool that he's kind of moving into that role. And it's interesting to see, you know, where Mario, you know, what the voice of Mario will be going forward. And I think Luigi's even getting a new voice. So,
Oh wow, I didn't know that. And the
yeah,
first time this changes is Super Mario Wonder coming up in October, right?
yeah. So, that is correct. Well, I mean, if you unless you want to count Chris Pratt in the Mario movie,
Yeah, yeah.
but no, no, I
It's
don't think
now
Chris
Chris
Pratt's
Pratt
going to
for
be in
all the
Mario Wonder.
games. All the games, yeah. Oh, that'd be my nightmare. I mean, he didn't do a bad job in the movie, right? But
No, but
they could have done somebody better, I think. So
sure. Yeah. But yeah, so Mario Wonder will not be Charles Martinet, and we will. I wonder who it'll be.
oh my god. Dun. All right. So let's move on from that and let's talk about Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Um, Also called KOTOR for any of the fans out there or people maybe that don't know that. And this is a remake that was announced at a PlayStation conference a while ago. It was announced pre-pandemic, I think. I think so.
It
A
was a
while.
while ago.
Yeah, it was
I
a
think
while ago.
so.
So this is one of the most beloved RPGs and higher rated RPGs of all time. Came out on the original Xbox and also has a sequel, KOTOR 2. Amazing, amazing story in this one. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're over the moon about this game. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, from an RPG perspective, really, really good. So when they came out and said, "Hey, we're gonna make a remake for this. We're gonna bring it up to modern times. Maybe more modern RPG systems because it is a little clunky if you go back to play it. Modern graphics, fresh cinematics, all that stuff. I mean, they blew the doors off with this announcement. The hype was unreal. And then from there, it's been all downhill, right? And I'll kick it over to you, Evan, for some comments on this.
Yeah. So initially, it was going to be Aspire that was doing this remake. It sounds like, you know, either you know, Jim Ryan or somebody at Disney they looked at what Aspire had gotten to at this point with with the remake, or this was several months ago or something earlier this year,
Hmm.
uh, and they saw it and they're like, nope, that's not what we're gonna do. This has to be better. So much so that they took it away from Aspire. They moved to Saber Interactive, which I want to say Aspire also did like the KOTOR and KOTOR 2 ports
Oh,
to
okay.
Switch that had some issues. Like they were supposed to, unless it was Saber Interactive, which would be less, a little more concerning for the remake. But um, so they moved to Saber Interactive. There's a lot of uncertainty going around this now, it was really disappointing because this is a really, like you said, like anticipated title. The BioWare RPGs are, especially from that time, right? They're from the early 2000s to like the mid 2000s. I mean, really up until like Dragon Age Inquisition ish, and Mass Effect Andromeda came out, and that was really felt like the downfall of BioWare. And
Hmm.
you see BioWare laying off lead writers now, and
Hmm.
all this other stuff. That so it's like it leaves more concern for the next Dragon Age that's supposed to be coming out. But man, at BioWare's peak, that is some of the best RPGs with the Mass Effect trilogy, the original Dragon Age Origins.
KOTOR and
That
KOTOR
was
2.
right. Which Dragon Age Origins was really kind of almost that successor to Baldur's Gates 2, right? A
Yep.
lot of those developers worked on Baldur's Gate, or prior to that. So.
Right.
And so it's like Baldur's Gate 3 also almost feels like a successor, or just
Yeah.
another step up from Dragon Age Origins. um yeah, so your KOTOR, Mass Effect, and Dragon Age at the peak. So to have that excitement and then just see like, oh, it might not be great, right? And it's like this has to be great because of how great it was at its time. So it's
The
just like to
bar is
come out
so
and
high.
it
So
can't
high.
be a subpar game, right? And
Do you
I
think
don't
it
know.
comes out? Do you think it comes out or no?
I don't know. I
Oh.
am less than 50% confident that it will come out at
Ooh.
this point. Like that's how much of a mess it feels like.
Yeah.
At the very least, I don't think it'll come out this generation. Uh
Whoa, that's saying
I
something.
think yeah, so I think we're that far away from it. Because I think Saber Interactive just had to start over with it. And if they want to do it right, if they're trying to do if they cared enough to take it away from Aspire and not put out whatever Aspire was doing,
Hmm.
I think that if it comes out, it's going to make sure that Saber Interactive does what they need to do. And I don't know that I have a whole lot of confidence in Saber. I'd have to look and see what Saber Interactive does. I think I'm a little more confident than Aspire, but uh, yeah, I have another title that kind of had a little bit of similar story too. Unless you have anything else to say about Kodor.
Yeah, just really quick.
Yep.
My confidence level may be 70%, but I'm on the hopium here. I'm just hoping
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it works. You're probably more realistic. Looking at what Aspire has done, I'm looking at their titles right now. So they did a DLC for Civ 6, which I think was only for they did the App Store port for iOS.
Mm.
They did KOTOR 1 and 2 ports, Star Wars Force Unleashed port to Switch, and Star Wars Republic Commando port. I think the Republic Commando port was good. I don't know about Force Unleashed. And then they also made, I think they made Myth Force is a game by them. So
Oh,
their resume is not very big, and they were just given
Myth.
this enormous project with the weight of the world, of the geek
Yeah.
world, on their shoulders, and I think they're crumbling.
Yeah, they just couldn't take the pressure. Maybe I don't know, or maybe just I mean it's just too much for them, right?
Yeah. All
But
sorts of things can
because
go wrong, especially in a remake, right?
yeah, yeah. I know KOTOR 2 was supposed to come out with the DLC on the Switch, and then it
It
was
didn't.
like, "Oh, it's coming. Don't worry, it will be here." And then they're like, "No, we're not." Like a year later or something like that, they're just like, "Yeah, we've not we've stopped working on the DLC. It's not coming out for the Switch." So it was just like they failed to deliver on a promise. Like, so people bought this game thinking, "Okay, I'm gonna play through the game. Hopefully, by the time I get through it, the DLC will be there." And they're like, no, actually, it's not coming anymore. And
Yeah,
so
I
it's
think it
like,
was supposed to be some unfinished content. My understanding is there's a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor, so to speak, for KOTOR 2. And
okay,
there's ways to like mod that, or somebody got access to it or something. So you can Google this and
okay,
find it. But it's supposed to be really good content and make the game more complete. And I think Aspire was going to um, kind of put
finish
that
that.
into there. And it was like, oh,
Yeah,
that'll be like you said, everybody's like, oh, sweet, this is going to be a great thing to buy. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, that's canceled. So
right.
yeah, I've no confidence
Great.
in these guys, but hopefully it was the right decision to pull away from them and go somewhere else. What do you got next here, really quick, as we round out the 2023 titles and upcoming beyond that?
Yeah, so I want to talk about Prince of Persia: Sands of Time.
Hmm.
The remake kind of went through a similar thing. The public saw the Prince of Persia remake and where it was, and it looked awful. It looked terrible. It looked like worse than the original. And
How do you
people
do that?
were
How's it worse?
there were riots in the streets. No, but people were like, fans were very upset, and Ubisoft and whoever's developing it, whatever team within Ubisoft that developing it, they went back and they said, okay, well, we're actually going to push back the release. We're going to go fix this. And so I'm, for whatever reason, a little more hopeful there than I am with the KOTOR remake. But another thing that happened in that time, because they decided to go back and fix everything and actually do it correctly. They had a 2D Metroidvania like Prince of Persia that they announced and at Summer Games Fest this year,
Hmm.
and, and fans were like, "This isn't the Prince of Persia we wanted to see." The
Yeah.
game looked pretty great, right? Like, especially I think a lot of fans that played the original Prince of Persia's prior to the going 3D, the 2D games, they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh man, this looks like an awesome Prince of Persia game. I can't wait to play this game." Uh, but when you're waiting for that remake, that 3D remake, and you're just kind of like, "Oh, I just get this 2D, thing." You're just um
Kind of a tone deaf move
disappointed
by
in it.
the company, right, to do that.
Yeah, and it put them in a hard position because it's like this game was already coming. They're planning to come out after the Prince of or the Sands of Time
Yeah.
remake. So it's just like you would have already had Sands of Time was the idea. So what do you do? Just put this in the pocket until you have Sands of
Yeah.
Time. You don't know how much long. I mean, they have a better idea how much
Yeah.
longer Sands of Time is going to be. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens there. I think they were like, well, let's just continue with this release. We want to get it back and get this out and hopefully hopefully they do well with the remake here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to kind of round that out, Dead Space was another remake that came out this year that was really well received. And I don't think either of us played that, but it started off the year right. I would
Hmm.
say, especially for a year of remakes and remasters. And another one that was just announced, another boomer shooter, is Star Wars Dark Forces. And you seem to be you're a Star Wars guy.
Hmm.
You played this, right?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely played this back on the computer a lot. Ton of fun. It's like you said, a boomer shooter based off that Quake kind of Doom type engine, but in three-dimensional regards, where you can look around just like Quake. Um, Really cool game. If you're a Star Wars fan, this is where the Dark Trooper first originated, that they just now brought back into the newer Mandalorian season. So they reached all the way back to this game for that lore. Pretty formidable opponent. Game's a lot of fun. The remaster looks good. They showed a trailer of it. They did like side by sides or transitions, like, hey, here's the old game, here's the new one. Looks great. Same thing with the cinematics. They even redid the cinematics. Granted, it's kind of like it looks like MS Paint cinematics, but it's pretty cool and it looks a lot better now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super excited. I have to see the price on this and the release date. But if you're interested in Star Wars Dark Forces remaster, go Google it and check it out.
It's awesome.
So now for our final topic, I think we're going to talk about, can a remake or remaster be game of the year? And I think this is becoming more and more of a hot topic, as we discussed already. For example, this year RE4 remake and Metroid Prime remastered are the two of the highest rated games to come out this year. So does that justify them for being up for Game of the Year or not? And so I will kick it over to Evan and ask him point blank right now, yes or no, and then we'll dive into the discussion after I answer as well. So yes or no, can a remake or remaster, which are two different things, so we can get into that nuance, can one of those be Game of the Year or not?
So I played Metroid Prime, the best remaster of the year. And and that was one of my favorite games that I've played this year.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot be Game of the Year. And
Okay.
nor can Remake.
Okay. I will say yes, they should be considered, but not necessarily guaranteed to win. So if you're a listener, listen closely here and leave your comments because we'd like to hear you on either side of this debate. I would definitely appreciate your support in the yes, they can win Game of the Year. But let's dive into this a little more, Evan. So why? Um, put them up. Why can a remake or remaster not win Game of the Year? Go.
So I think if the game won Game of the Year when it came out originally, then how can it win Game of the Year again? It already won Game of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you say if a Game of the Year is the best game that came out that year, how can you win it twice? And if it didn't win it Game of the Year, I think that's also a problem.
Why is that a
When
problem?
it
Why is that
originally
a
came out.
problem? So if it was terrible back then, but
Because
they made this
it
amazing
wasn't if
thing,
it wasn't the best game 20 years ago or whenever it came out, then
doesn't that speak to
I
the
have a hard
credit of
time
the remake
believing
or the
that it could be the
remaster?
best game that came out 20 years later.
Okay.
Uh, and and then if it only came out a few years ago, then there's a problem that there was a remake to begin with.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Last of Us. Anyway, but yeah, I absolutely like. I think that's just weird to me. It is the game of the year should be the game of the year the year it came out. So it can't come out twice. It's a remake. It's taking a game that was already existed and just and making it better, but it just deserves its own category.
Okay. Its own category. So kind of like Pixar films or something where they say you can win best animation, but not best picture. Um, you go sit at the little kids table. This is the big boys table. Is that what you're saying?
No, so I've not. I don't agree with that. Right. So I think a Pixar movie should be able to win movie of the year and
Okay.
as well as best animated of the year. Just in the same way that let's say a game can win best art direction
Mm-hmm.
and and game of the year,
Okay.
or best type genre game or best whatever game and game of the year. That to me is that can do that, right? Like that is something. Uh, oh gosh,
So let me use this example. Super Mario RPG Metacritic. Let's see what the scores were back in the day. That's the Wii version. I don't know if there was actual scores back then for something that old. Let's just assume I'm just gonna say it was like low 80s, right? Super Mario RPG. User score is technically 8.9, but how accurate is that? So let's just say
right.
it's like low to mid 80s. They do a remake this year. It comes out. It's a hundreds across the board. This game is amazing. It's everything and more that the original was. And you're saying it can't win a game of the year? I think that's a testament to the developers who are probably not the same developers as 20 years ago, taking this project and saying, we're gonna do this thing justice and more. And you're saying that
I
can't
think
win game of the year?
I think to win remake of the year or remake remaster of the year in a year that you had Metroid Prime, Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, and Super Mario RPG comes out and it's better than all of those,
Hmm.
then man, you're really giving them a lot of accolades by saying, yes, this is the best remaster or remake of the year.
Oh
Uh,
man.
but there's no way that you can call it the game of the year. I don't think
It is
so.
a game and it's the best one of the year.
And it is a little tricky when you're talking about game before game of the year even existed in a real in a real sense, from something like the Super Nintendo or something. And if it took it, but to me, it's like that is not. And I don't want to discount what these developers do with remakes. And I love remakes and I love remasters and I love that they exist.
Hmm.
But I want to. It's not a new game to me, right? Like it's taking and not again, not saying it's saying that it takes away from what the devs are doing with it, but it is taking a game and remaking the same game with a new light in a new
Hmm.
light. And we talked about the difference between a remake and a remaster. And so
Hmm.
something like Final Fantasy VII remake, it's hard for me to say there might be an argument out there that can convince me that maybe something like that could be put up for the game of the year, but I don't think it could be put up for game of the year 3 times. So that's where I struggle.
Yeah.
Again, that's coming out in 3 parts. So I don't know. Maybe it can. It's like saying, what's the difference between breaking that into 3 parts and like saying, could Lord of the Rings win movie of the year 3 times
Yeah.
when that was one book that was brought into. I would say yes because I think those are the 3 greatest movies of all time. But so
Let me ask you another question then. So Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, obviously amazing game. We both love it. Tons and tons of hours into that. Started out as a DLC to Breath of the Wild, which was Game of the Year, pretty much unanimously. And they expanded it more. And granted, I'm being a little facetious here, but they added a lot of content to it, yes, but it's pretty much the same world with some added stuff, same kind of era type thing. With what the story is very closely tied. It's about as close to a remake or continuation as you can get to Breath of the Wild, and that's okay for Game of the Year. I mean, that's pretty much blurring the line, is it not?
I would argue that a DLC has a big enough DLC has more of a a spot at the table for game
Oh,
of the year than a remake does. You think of something like Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon, the didn't The Witcher 3 have a big
or
one,
like
or
Blood and
say
Wine. Yeah, like Blood and Wine. Or
yeah,
like Phantom
Blood and
Liberty for
Wine.
Cyberpunk coming out.
So you got some massive DLC. So even if Tears of the Kingdom was it, I don't want to say that I actually think DLC should be able to be Game of the Year. I think we got run into the same I run into the same argument there, but it's new content. It's new content. It's
Oh my
not taking.
gosh.
It's not you're adding story, you're adding narrative, you're adding gameplay, like you're adding completely. Tears of the Kingdom added, you've got all these new powers, you got brand new powers. You didn't just have the same powers from Breath of the Wild. You had brand new powers. You had a whole new, obviously we're talking about like there's 100 and more than 100% more map or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you with the depths, they doubled the map, and then you also have the Sky Islands, and uh,
Okay, so
yeah.
maybe Tears of the Kingdom is a bad example, but I feel like you fell off your rocker, man. We lost. You jumped the shark. You lost the plot. Whatever other saying you want to say when you say a DLC has a better chance than a remake. So
I'll die on that hill.
Super Mario RPG comes out as a remake, and it's got the same, let's say roughly the same game plus like 25 to 30% more, which could be equivalent to a DLC, but yet like Phantom Liberty or something has a better or more deserving chance to win Game of the Year versus a Super Mario RPG remake.
So
Am I hearing that right?
it's hard. This is hard. This is hard to say without it coming out. But let's have this conversation again when the Elden Ring DLC comes out, and and tell me that because they've been working on this for like 2-3 years now.
Right.
But before it comes out, it'll be probably 2.5-3 years that they've worked on this, and you're gonna have so much more content in that unless they end up turning it into a sequel. But
Yeah.
really, really taking a lot of inspiration from Breath of the Wild there, right? Um, but when that comes out, and then let's take a look at that, and then compare it to something like your Super Mario RPG remake, and tell me which one is more makes more of an argument for something new as something new that could compete for the game of the year. That's where I stand on that.
Man, we're gonna have to revisit this conversation then, I think. So let's talk about the one. It's not necessarily the elephant in the room, but to round out this conversation, Resident Evil 4 remake. We probably both agree. If anything was going to win Game of the Year, like let's say that's even possible, that's the one that could potentially do it, right? Granted, it's a pretty stacked year this year, and we have stuff yet to come out. Who knows? Super Mario Wonder could be hundreds across the board. Baldur's Gate 3 obviously came out. Tears of the Kingdom. Starfield is yet to come out. Spider-Man 2 could blow the doors off. So very stacked here, but let's say RE4 remake has a chance just from a score perspective, and you're saying flat out you don't. This is a no for you, a hard no. This is not gonna win.
Shouldn't even be nominated.
So do you think it'll be nominated at the Game Awards in December?
Well, definitely out of the remakes from this year, Resident Evil 4 definitely has a chance. I think it could slide in there at number 6. I don't know that it will. I got to think of what 6 I think right off the bat. Zelda, Starfield. Now I've changed my mind. And Baldur's Gate 3 is the number 3 guy. But I think Spider-Man 4 is right in there. Those are shoo-ins. There's nothing. I don't think anything's pushing those around. Maybe Resident Evil 4 does get put in there, but I don't think it deserves a spot. I think it deserves a spot in recognition for what it is and what it does, and that's a remake of the year.
Okay, I'll end this by saying I think remasters maybe a little bit different if you're just upscaling and stuff, but remake I think should definitely be considered. I think it's a very rough year for Resident Evil 4 remake, as good as it is to win. I bet it gets nominated at the Game Awards, and I bet it gets like I can't remember if they do placements or not, but probably like fourth or fifth in voting is my guess. And you're saying you don't think it gets nominated at all, or if it does, it's the bottom of the barrel. So you're correct.
I think it could slide in there at 5th or 6th spot. I don't think it should. I don't think it should be qualify. So just like Elden Ring from 2022 shouldn't qualify in 20, or Cyberpunk, even though it's I said DLC maybe more deserving, but I still don't think. Oh, Cyberpunk's got a bunch of new content, and they've totally rebuilt the game since launch, right?
It's a
It
remake.
still can't be Game of the Year this year. It came out 3 years ago. So I'm gonna make, if you don't mind, one more question here, one more point.
Mm-hmm.
So Resident Evil 4, if this remake came out the year that It Takes Two won Game of the Year. So Resident Evil 4, much bigger game, right? Much well-known franchise. Are you gonna take Game of the Year from It Takes Two for a game that was just remade, that Capcom's like, oh, you know what? This would be a great year to just come in or use a game that we've already made that we know people love, and just snag that Game of the Year award from It Takes Two? Because honestly, it probably does that year, right?
Yeah. So you're making Capcom sound super nefarious, like they're plotting. They're like, when can we drop this game? Steal Game of the Year and every other award. Yeah, I mean, if I'm the sole decider and it's the better game, it's the best game, the best implementation, it wins Game of the Year. That's it. Very cut and dry to me.
Yeah. Did you hear that? It Takes Two, devs. Mark doesn't think you deserved your award.
Revoke his copy, delete it off of the console now. So listeners, please let us know what you think about this one. Would love to hear your thoughts. Definitely need some backup ammunition for remakes being Game of the Year on my side, and I'm sure Evan could use some help as well. So thank you guys for listening today. We'll do a quick little drop here and mention. I'll talk about the Discord really quick, and then I'll pitch it over to Evan for the social media. So just thanks for listening, guys. We really want to get the conversation going. We have a Discord for this with some listeners already, and everybody is welcome. It's always in the comments section of our videos and our podcast. And speaking of where you can find us, Evan, where can you find us?
Yeah, so you can find us on YouTube at Remote Play Podcast, youtube.com/remote play podcast, or you can find us. We're on X, we're on TikTok, we're on what else are we on? We're on other platforms, Instagram. Yeah. So we haven't posted a whole lot on some of this stuff. We're most active. We'll be most active in the Discord. We'll be active in the YouTube comments. So if you really want to interact with us, those are the two places to go. We'd love to see you there. If you want to be there. If you don't want to be there, then don't be there. But yeah, if you're interested in engaging with us and in any following that starts to build here, then those would be the right places to go. we'll pretty much respond to any YouTube comment right now, and we'll certainly engage on Discord as well. But we're looking to get some YouTube Shorts going, some TikToks here, and maybe some Twitter posts and things like that at some point here. So look for us there.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.